7 years or so, since 2015. So it's 8 years. And we've talked about this. And when you say that people don't care if it's, or even in the communities, we've talked about how communities in Chicago have been choked off from opportunities. And we're seeing the manifestation of over 100 years of oppression and suppression. Wouldn't you say?
No, absolutely. And I think to the good brother's point, I mean, there's a different reaction when that level of violence is taking place in different communities than our own. And I think that's a big problem. When you feel differently about someone being shot and killed on the north side than you do about on the south side, that says enough right there in terms of the way in which the narrative has been pushed, where we had the expectation. We've normalized the death and the snatching of our youth's lives from right under us, and children being buried by their parents. I mean, these are things that are complete hideous facts that we've not only become too comfortable with, but we aren't doing enough about. But I do push back on some of the folks who say, blame the mayor, whoever else. Because I do think a lot of the change starts block by block and community by community. And this is why, we've also been doing some back to school stuff, anti-violence stuff, free legal assistance clinics, free farmers markets, free healthcare clinics, to make sure we're also getting to the root causes that we know perpetuate these cycles and the poverty and racism that yield these kind of inevitable outcomes. There is no anti-violence strategy in Lake Forest, right? Because it's super saturated with so many resources where you get a top-notch education, top-notch healthcare, top-notch everything. So people carry out their frustrations with being denied access to basic necessities differently. I mean,
it would make me mad. It would make me mad if I saw what was going on the north side, and the houses look nice and the streets are safe. I'd be angry and be like, what difference does it make?
And you may have seen on social media how people who are privileged can't even accept the fact that they're not allowed to park their boat where they want to.
Yeah.
So imagine if they're handling that with violence, how they would actually be confronted, how they would actually react to real struggle, real hardship that people are dealing with every day.
So yes, we need to talk about that as well. But it is a very stitch it all together. I don't know what that was.
That was weaving it in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do. So this is what when I first saw the Twitter video of the fight down in Alabama, and so I am coming from a different. Obviously, my instinct is like stay out of the way. Like, but I feel the catharsis of it. But I also feel. I think I sent you a video of a young man who said, this is it. If we all came together like this in our communities and said, we need to take charge. We are capable of. There's so much that happened in that fight. So much. Someone was saying it wasn't racial.
Really?
But remember what I have been talking about since this video came out is that without everyone else deciding I have to jump in, what was to stop those white people from killing that? And by the way, he was the co-captain of the boat. I've been saying dock worker and security guard. I found out today he was the co-captain of the boat.
With uniform on.
Yeah. And they had been waiting. They had told these people for 45 minutes, get out of the way. We're parking there. You don't belong there. They were flipping them off, disregarding them. That was a boat full of black people being disregarded, disrespected. We don't care. And then they walked away from their boat.
That's right.
So he started moving the boat, which is apparently also a common thing with boats. No big deal. You move it on the water. He's going to tie it up somewhere else. And they came down and beat him up.
Beat him.
What?
That's right.
What?
Kept beating them. More people came and beat them. Yeah. It was 1, 2, 3, 6. I counted 7.
Yeah.
So at what point was you going to say, this is wrong? We're going to hurt this guy. At what point?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody just get mad at the reaction. It's the reaction. Once people come to protect him, now everybody's mad as uproar. Yeah. This guy, you could have killed this guy.
Yes. Yeah. That's the thing. And then the kid jumping off the boat. I mean, I don't know if you've seen
Aquaman.
You're swimming.
Aquaman.
And so much of the commentary and the women getting involved and people are like, and of course what they're doing is editing it so you just see the women, the white women get hit with the chairs. I'm like, I'm sorry. Yeah. You put your hands on black people too in this situation. You stay on the boat. Yeah. If you don't think you should get in the middle of this, you weren't going to break up these guys. And I saw Don't get in the middle of it.
Don't get in the middle of it. It was messy and it was out of hand from the beginning, and it was handled. and now law enforcement is got some people booked up, and we'll see how it goes from
there. They
have
warrants for arrest. They would like Uncle to with the folding chair. They've asked that he also give them a call. But there's plenty of people that want to pay for whatever legal fees.
Yeah, he should probably just
but in the heat of you gotta be honest, in the heat of things, hey, you're fighting.
Yeah.
you're fighting. You're not even there when you black out. You're fighting. You have saw people getting punched, stomped, and women getting hit.
Yes.
It's like it's every man for himself.
Yeah.
So at that point, it wasn't woman, man, woman. It was we're fighting.
Yeah.
So
well, even seeing there's so many great angles, you guys. I told folks yesterday. I spent a whole hour on this yesterday because it was just so much has come out from this and so many different angles. I hadn't even seen the two white guys diving off the pier.
Right.
The two that you see surrounded. Have you seen this video? Oh my god! Because they came at them, right, and all of a sudden they were surrounded not just by the black dudes, but then the cops were like, "Yeah, we're just making sure they're okay."
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He drew the line on how much he cared about his family right there. He was like, there's a lot of melanin over here, and I'd rather be in that water.
Yeah, no weapons were drawn. This was just a flat out, we're doing this. Right. So, I mean, and even the first dude that comes running down the ramp, you see that he doesn't want to fight anybody.
He's trying to break it up.
Yeah. He was trying to de-escalate.
Yeah. It was, oh my God.
He was trying to de-escalate. But I look at this fight like, not to blow it out of proportion, I feel like it was a fight. Do we know it's kind of racial? Yes. But if you look at it like it was a big brawl. That happened in the 80s, that happened in the 70s. When the weapons, I mean, a few people got hurt, but it was a major fight. So to make this more than what it is, like how some people's trying to make it seem, I don't think that's fair, because it's like when the fight first started, when he was first beating up the captain, are you telling me that no law enforcement saw them surround him? No law enforcement saw that happening? The law enforcement then come into, the one group start losing. That's when the law enforcement comes.
Oh yeah,
so,
the security. If you see, like, there's security on the railing up there.
Yeah, this is the captain getting. Yeah. They saw that he was about to get hurt. They saw what was going on. Nobody slowed it down. Nobody wanted to try to stop anything. It's,
I do think, I mean, my breath is kind of taken away by the things that I've learned because of what happened on that dock in Montgomery. One, it was a place where thousands of slaves were brought into the country to be sold, and they had so many, they actually built warehouses in order to sell them in the market. The other is the folding chair. I did not know that a black man invented the folding chair.
I didn't know that.
I mean, it's true. There's so much great information now. Yes. And also, I mean, with the history of Martin Luther King Jr. and the boycott on the buses and so many of the, I mean, like the catharsis is what it feels like for a lot of folks to know that we can stand up for ourselves.
Exactly.
And the cops aren't going to turn on us, tase you guys.
Right.
I say us, but I mean, like, again, I'm living vicariously through the catharsis of this.
Right.
So many white people are like, yes! Sorry.
It's important for people to realize when they think about places like Montgomery, how recent that history is. I mean, you're talking about the people who got off those boats. Their father may have been involved in the wrong side of history as it relates to that, the sit-ins and, March and Selma, whatever it may be. So it's important for people to recognize that, racism is not only just a part of our past, it's part of our present. And if we're not really mindful and intentional about how we safeguard our community members so everyone can feel safe, everyone can feel protected by the police when they're being abused and jumped on. Even co-captains should not have to have that level of rank to be certain that they can have some sort of protection. Then we're going to continue to have issues where, race is kind of the easy way for people to divide one another. And I think, unfortunately, what happened in this incident, I don't think anyone would be thinking for a second if this was a white captain, if the police would have come and helped them immediately or not. And unfortunately, that's a topic of conversation that not enough people are having, but it needs to be had so we can actually settle some of these issues kind of once and for all.
And the way we are, and again, I know that we want to push back on people blaming the mayor. I mean, again, this is over 100 years of how this city has been policed, and how, I mean, absolutely, look. Todd and I come from a background. I don't know what your relationship is with people that you might know in law enforcement. Have you been able to develop a network of friends within law enforcement?
Definitely.
And I mean, like, part for me is accountability, right? From everybody, whether that's pointing out that we got some bad eggs or the apples, but a bad apple the whole rest of the saying is ruins the whole barrel.
Exactly.
Right? And for bad actors in our communities who are messing it up for everybody else, we still take accountability for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think it's important to note that black communities are taking accountability for it indirectly. I mean, we're dealing with all the pain and the hardship of it.
Exactly.
Police departments aren't necessarily feeling that same pain and hardship for the bad apples on their force. You know, I mean, certainly there may be more scrutiny and maybe more stress, but that's social pressure. Black people, because of the violence and the racism that we're experiencing, are living in fear on a daily basis. We're worried about being arrested, being harassed, not by people in the community, but people who are paying our own tax money to serve and protect us. So I do think there needs to be a better demarcation and distinction between, you know, what accountability means. Yes, that people in our community aren't being arrested enough, but we're not being arrested enough by whom? By the people who should be keeping us safe, by the very police officers who are, you know, responsible for a significant amount of brutality. And the reason why, you know, Chicago is known as a false confession capital of the world. I mean, so I'm certainly, I have multiple brothers who are police officers, just, you know, full disclosure, and they deal with a lot of BS simply because of what other people have been involved in within the force and, you know, and other forces across the nation. And that makes me nervous for them because now they are more of a target than they should be.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's important to also acknowledge that, you know, we feel like targets as brown people in communities. And like, you know, if I go to Montgomery, Alabama tomorrow, I'm not going to feel completely excited and safe when I'm walking down the street. And I'm certainly not be going to any docks anytime soon. So, but I mean, that's a reality that I think we also need to recognize, that walking in that reality is a daily trauma, and it's important to acknowledge that.
And I think that was what I saw in the catharsis of what happened, like with those videos, the humor that has come from that, whether it's a portrait of the captain throwing his hat in the air, his bat signal. But I also think that, you know, study after study has shown that more police doesn't mean less crime. That's the other thing. I mean, and it does sometimes feel very much us against them, that you don't know what it's like. We're told we don't know what it's like to be a cop. Okay, we'll listen, and we also want to give you the support. We want to make sure you're safe so that we're safe.
I mean, it's to the point where I think that you have to bridge the gap as far as the community. You have the community police. You have our politicians that get paid. Something has to come together where the police feel safe, the community feels safe, where we can let the police know that we understand, we love you, we care. We know you have a wife at home. We know you have kids. We're not saying go out there and get yourself killed. We understand there are guys in the community that has a gun bigger than yours, that shoot more times than yours. We understand that. What we want you to understand is that we just want to be protected like everybody else. We just want a fair shake like everybody else. But when you have the union, the head of the union of the police, racist, I mean, how far can it go? Anytime you have, okay, they took the defund police and ran with it. We know they really didn't mean that. Anybody know about defund police? It really didn't mean take all their money, break them. It didn't mean that. They were just saying take some of the money, put it in other areas. But anytime you have people pushing that and blowing it out of proportion when we know it wasn't true, then you have the head of the union that runs the police saying, if Brandon Johnson wins, 3,000 cops is going to retire. What type of narrative that puts out there? Then you have this. I tell people, keeping it in layman terms. I say, look, if they're saying defund the police and they pushing that, take the money away from them, who's to say that the union, the head of the union for the police department, is not telling his officers, since they want to take our money, don't do your job? Let's just be honest. If they want to take our money, don't put your life at risk. They want to take our money. When you get that call, wait 10 minutes. They don't want to pay us. Listen, when they say it's 30 shots went off, don't break your neck to go over there. You have a little girl at home. You have a wife at home. We got to be honest with ourselves. I mean, racism is deep. So anytime somebody in the hood or, you know, the neighborhood gets shot and the police take 10, 15 minutes, you got to ask yourself why. Ambulance take 20 minutes, ask yourself why. But you also got to look at it like this. It also backfires sometimes when a young lady just got killed out south. The cop was going to get a master's. I've got her name. She's going to get a master's. And she got killed in the neighborhood from the shot spotters, alerted the police that somebody was shot, and the police took 30 minutes to come. Right? The police took 30 minutes to come, and come to find out, it was one of their own. So it backfired a little bit. I hate that this young lady died. She's about to get a master's a week from now. I hate that when a cop finally showed up 30 minutes later, it's one of our own, 10-10, officer down. But if you would have came and did your job how you supposed to did, probably could have saved this young lady's life. So it's a lot. But you know,
and that exemplifies the us and them. It's one of us. It wasn't one of them.
Exactly. I mean, I have a relationship with Brandon Johnson. You know, I help him. I campaign for him. I was boots on the ground for him. I have a relationship with him. And you know, when I see Brandon Johnson, I tell him, I talk to him. I say, look, you have to talk to the cops. You have to get away from the political side. You have to get away from business, and you got to talk to these cops like, you know, like you're your friends, like your family. Let them know we understand. We're here to help you. We want you to help us. You got to get away from all that, because every other mayor that we had didn't do it. For the last 100 years, it's always just been mayor, cop. You know, you have to let these cops know, look, we need to fix this. We need to do something. Yeah. So they won't feel like everybody is against them, because people need help. A lot of people say they're against the cops, but somebody rob your mother, you're going to call the cop. Somebody rob you and shoot you, you're going to call the cop. Yeah. You need help, you're going to call the cop. So let's be honest with ourselves, you know.
And I think what you're saying about Officer Preston, but also about the head of FOP are the biggest takeaways here. I mean, the community, as much as we want, can do everything we can to give out laurel branches and try to work with the police and give good information. But the police aren't acting on it because they're worried about how they're going to be seen, whether they're going to be compensated, whether they're not going to be protected. Then that's going to further erode the trust that we may have in the police, even in our most dire moments.
Exactly.
It is a natural and logical conclusion. If you feel like as a police officer, no one's supporting, no one's getting your back, then you're going to do whatever you need to make sure you get home safely. Exactly. And that means put yourself less at risk.
Exactly.
So that's why I'm grateful for Mayor Johnson, but also advocates like you, brother, and others. And of course, that's a social change. Yeah. We just don't like brutality. We love for protecting the community. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's where we're very clear. I mean, so we do understand that morale is an issue within the police department right now. So that's why when we have events, we make sure we're inviting police departments. That's why when we celebrate folks, we also make sure we're celebrating some of our officers, because they are heroes. Exactly. People who are not brutalizing people and who are serving and protecting and putting themselves at risk are undeniable heroes. And unfortunately, we are at a state where even people in the community, when you say something like that, it's considered controversial.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, for every, I mean, like either sort of point of view, like when I ran for office, like we were trying, do we take pictures with cops? You know, like, I mean, it's because the progressives are like, oh, you're a cop lover. You know, right. If I make any sort of gesture that, because I have many friends that are in law enforcement and are firefighters. And, you know, I grew up here. I grew up in a neighborhood where it's a quarter of all first responders live. So it's in our DNA too. Mm-hmm. We also know that there are flaws. Having grown up with these folks, we also know that there are flaws. Anyway, let's take a break here. We're hanging out with our friend Sean Childs, Hope Foundation.
Household Foundation.
Todd will tell you it's going to take me probably 3 or 4 more visits for me to get all the information correct. I used to have a whole list of things. He was like an associate professor at...
and she still shoots about 50-50 on wow.
Todd Belko, co-founder and executive director of Social Change. The website again, Sean?
This is householdfoundation.com.
householdfoundation.com and socialchange.site, SITE.
Perfect.
See, I'm getting it. Mm-hmm. But don't consider it a slight. My brain has a lot.
And we improved the website too, I must say. It's beautiful now, thanks to my lady Felicia. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Felicia. Maybe I need some help from Felicia. Let's take a break here and talk about websites too. If you have any questions for my guest, Sean Childs is determined to save children's lives in Chicago from violence, and it really does intersect with the work that they do at Social Change, uplifting folks, and so many work. I know that you recently had an event. We'll talk about that when we come back. Whether it's health, recovering from incarceration, whether it's trying to just find a path forward, learning about voting, so many different avenues to make sure that people are engaged, involved, and cared for in their communities. More in a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and 9:50 a.m. Minneapolis, St. Paul.